Hello again. We're back today with another world wine review. Today I'm very pleased to review a wine that I have been excited about since 1998. I discovered the grape variety watching a program called Simply Wine and Cheese back in 1998 on CTV. It is about a very rare grape called the Savagnin, and do not confuse that with Sauvignon or Sauvignon Blanc, because it is a totally different grape. We are going to be looking at a wine from a very small wine region in eastern France called the Jura, and we're going to be looking at a wine that is consisting of a mix of Chardonnay and something called Vin Jaune, which translates to yellow wine in English. The wine we're going to be reviewing is called Domaine Grand Tradition 2009, Cotes du Jura. It comes from an appellation called Cotes du Jura Contrôlé. It is the rough equivalent to the Ontario or BC Vintners Quality Alliance or VQA, and it sells for $21.95 at the LCBO. Since Vin Jaune is such a rare wine in this part of the world, I'm going to give you some very specific production information from the internet so you have a background on how this is made. Yellow wine is made from late harvest Savagnin grapes, a white variety in the Traminer family, which is less aromatic than the better-known Gewürztraminer. The grapes are usually harvested in late October when the sugars have developed enough to have a potential alcohol level of 13 to 15% for the finished product. The grapes are fermented slowly and then kept in small oak caskets that hold 228 liters or 60 gallons. The casks are not topped up, so an air gap appears above the wine due to evaporation. A film of yeast grows over the wine, protecting it partially but not totally from oxidation. In the Jura, this film is called veil, but is similar to the familiar flor in sherry production. The veil yeast has many similar properties to flor, but thrives better in a lower alcohol environment and develops less heavily than the flor does. Producers in the Jura include André and Muriel Tissot, Gaspard Feuillet, Chateau Bethany, Domaine Berthet-Bondet, Frederic Lornay, and Henry Mayer. The veil typically takes 2 to 3 years to develop fully. During this time, the wine is exposed to slight levels of oxidization that provide chemical changes that produce ethanal, ethanal, as well as ethanol, which is standard alcohol, and the aroma compound of sotolin. These compounds contribute to the unique flavors and aromas associated with yellow wine. Winemakers must carefully observe the wine throughout the aging process, as there is a risk of it developing the wine fault of volatile acidity. The wine acquires its characteristic yellow color and nutty flavors as it ages for the requisite time of 6 years and 3 months, the time that must elapse between harvest and bottling. Although at certain points during this time the wine is not necessarily in the cask. After the allotted time, only about 60% of the original wine remains. The yellow wine is then bottled in special squat bottles that hold 62 cl or 21 ounces called clevelans. Historically, the bottle size alludes to the amount of wine left over after 6 years of aging and evaporation. The unusual size of the cleveland adds to bureaucratic complications often encountered when importing wine into countries such as the US, where yellow wine is virtually unknown. Okay, let's pour a sample and see what the color is. Well, it appears to be a slightly darker color of gold, um, but it is still quite clear. Okay, let's take a whiff and see what we got. Well, it certainly doesn't disappoint. It does come across as a sherry. In fact, it gives me memories of drinking Canadian sherry at my grandmother's house in the early 60s, watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer at Christmas time. I get indications of very high alcohol and a very, very pronounced aroma of crushed almonds. Obviously, part of the Vin Jaune part of this blend. Okay, now we'll take a taste. Well, it's a very unusual mix. The Chardonnay really comes out on the beginning palate. It comes out with a very high acidity, a very green appleish tinge to the palate. It's very strong, and you can really feel the acidity on it. The green apple subsides on the mid palate to an acidic tinge. Then the crushed almonds of the yellow wine kicks in and dominate to the end of the palate with a nice little finish. The alcohol level of this wine is not excessive, even though you may think that when you get it on the aroma. All in all, very unique and very pleasant. Since I don't consider this a Monday to Thursday wine, I'm going to waive that score on this particular review. Hardcore sweet tasters may not like this. I am a borderline sweet hypersensitive taster, maybe leaning to sweet when push comes to shove. But with experience, you gain something called neuroplasticity, which allows you to project things in your mind as to what other people might like. In this case, I think that hypersensitive and sensitive tasters, possibly tolerant tasters, might find this wine quite good. I'm going to change the use of the term SQ to something called vinotype, and that is just a classification of the different tasting profiles that I mention in these reviews. That is the evolving term that is coming about. Score-wise, I'm going to give it an 89. I think it's a very good wine. I think it's a very unique wine, and I think it's well worth trying out. It does go with anything that has cheese on it. That is what the locals have on their cuisine when they match this wine. But obviously, as a advocate of flavor balancing, if you add the proper salt and acidity, you could probably match it with many, many more foods. So that's it for this edition of World Wine Review. We'll see you again next time.